Welcome everybody to this webinar on change orders, and we've got Tony DeTolve as well as Molly Shiflett from the University of Virginia with us today. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually go through some of the challenges that and some of the surprises that a lot of capital construction owners face with change orders, and especially when there's a traditional paper process involved. And I can tell you I'm very passionate about this subject and I love talking about it, but as a project manager, sometimes it's not my most favorite thing to actually process or work through. And so with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Tony and Molly, and they're going to show you what they've got.
Thanks, Chris. Hi, this is Tony and Molly here at the University of Virginia. And we wanted to talk to you today about how UVA has moved from a paper-based construction change order system to eBuilder and the advantages that we've found from this transition. We're calling this organic construction change orders because, like you see on the right, we've found that when you keep your change order issues addressed quickly and efficiently, it prevents them from becoming stale, as represented on the right of the picture there, and it helps the entire project move forward when we stay on the left side of the picture and we keep everyone up to date and apprised as to what's going on. It works better for the project, works better for the owner. So having said that, let's talk first a little bit about the University of Virginia. We are a public institution, and one of the things that means is we have lots of procedures and rules in place for how we can procure construction, how we can make changes to our construction procurement. And one of the things that eBuilder has given us through this new process is we're able to meet all of those requirements, but in a more efficient sort of way, in a more organic sort of way. We do about 425 new projects, construction projects a year. We have two different departments within UVA. We have a capital project department that does between 80 and 300 million a year in construction, and we also have an in-house renovation and construction group that does about 40 million a year. And we have about almost 1,100 eBuilder users, split 60-40 between internal and external. So we have quite a few people using eBuilder because it's been very advantageous for us in processing, among other things, change orders. So one of the first issues that we face with the paper construction change order process is who starts it. Is it going to be the CM? Is it going to be the AE? Internally, we have a construction manager, we have a project manager. Are either of them going to start it? Once it's started, who does it then go to? Does it vary depending on the size of the project? Does it vary depending upon how big the change order is? Does it vary depending upon who the PM and CAM are, or the experience we have with the AE or the CM or GC? So while we have a form that they fill out, typically figuring out who starts it and how and basic information can be challenging. So as I said, we have a form that we use for construction change orders. It's 7 pages. I've only shown here a couple pages, but one of the problems with the form is that there are literally hundreds of bits of information that need to be entered each time. If one of them is incorrect, one teeny tiny little thing, as we see here with the contract number, they've put in a different number, this is the correct number, it starts all over again. So it's not particularly user-friendly in that new data has to be entered each time. If you repurpose something from before, which often happens, and it doesn't get corrected, you perpetuate the mistake, and the next time it comes along, you make the same mistake again. Another problem with the form, again, here's the second page, but as I said, this is only 2 of 7. If there's an item missing, it starts all over again. Something as simple as the address the address and the city-state of the GC. Starts all over again. Once it's started, who has it? Is it on somebody's desk? Is it in the mail truck between buildings? Is it in somebody's email box? Is it on somebody's server? Is somebody on vacation? You go into a meeting and your boss wants to know where the change order is. I don't know. I put it in the mail. I don't know where it is. Problem with the paper world. Again, as I alluded to earlier, as a public institution, in order to approve change orders, depending upon the type of change it is and the amount of the change, affects how many signatures are required and the order in which those signatures are required, and whether there's pre-approval before the signatures. So you've got hundreds of projects going on, you've got multiple change orders, and each and every time everybody involved in the paper world needs to remember, oh, this is X amount, so therefore it needs to go to Y before Z. Oh, but it's also this, so actually it needs to go to A, then to Y, then to Z. Lots of times this is done incorrectly. Lots and lots of times this is done incorrectly. So what all this leads to is, and this is why we're calling it organic, is the change order issue could be addressed, for example, in 1 month. Say it comes up in June. The construction folks working on it, the PM and the GC think, okay, we've agreed on the change order, we've agreed on the amount, we have the backup, we've filled out the form. But what typically happens is the form doesn't then end up on the desk of the person who's reviewing it until 3 or 4 months later. This is very typical. And then once it gets there, typically it's about the time that the CM or GC wants to be paid for the work that was in the change order. There's something missing, like we saw in the previous slides. The form is filled out incorrectly, or it's incomplete, or the backup is inadequate. And then you're left scrambling, trying to make sure that within the net 30-day requirements that we have, that everybody gets paid on time. So again, in the paper world, you're wide open for these kinds of problems, and they happen on a regular basis. So we decided that, amongst other things, we wanted to stop this kind of insanity, and we wanted an e-builder process to do the following. We wanted something that would decrease processing time from beginning to end, again, to make it more organic, by which I mean it happens so that everything, all of the approvals, all of the backup are done in a more simultaneous manner so they don't sit and go stale for 3 or 4 months. We wanted to make sure we knew 1 or 2 people who start these all of the time. We wanted a defined, structured workflow so that we didn't have to rely upon the memories or the knowledge of the people on each project each time to make sure all of the pre-approvals are obtained, the signatures were obtained, that is done in a timely fashion and in a way where we can see exactly who has it when. We wanted to be able to capture existing project data. There's no need to retype project data and open yourself up to the chance for an error, thereby making the form wrong and having to start over again. We also wanted the contract amount updated automatically within eBuilder, so that piece was taken care of. We wanted to be immediately seen as to what this change order's potential and real impact could be on the budget. So the way we have this set up in eBuilder is as soon as the process gets started, it immediately shows up in the cost module as something that's coming down the road. We wanted all the documentation for the change order automatically filed. We didn't want have to wait for somebody to do that 2 or 3 weeks later. And we all wanted all of the information in one searchable location. We didn't want the backup on somebody's hard drive, the form on the network drive, the signature somewhere else, all in one place so you can be searched. So, having said that, I'm now going to turn it over to Molly to talk about what we came up with using eBuilder.
So we at UVA put together a team to redesign the paper process when moving forward into an electronic structured workflow. In doing so, we were able to define actors within each of the following roles. So upon the start, we have it set up so that the roles are defined. The GC or the project manager or the construction manager can start the CCOP, the construction change order proposal. Depending on who starts it, it asks itself a question and then moves on for review by the architect or the engineer. The architect or engineer can reject it or approve it, and it moves on to our construction manager for review. The process then again asks itself a question in which is PS the CM, and PS is our internal construction team project services. It then moves to our contract administration for review of all procurement issues to make sure that we are in compliance. It then asks itself a question depending on what code was selected for the change order proposal, and it goes to either the PM or the CFO for review. Then the process goes into a hold for change order step and is finished. Once the change order proposal has been approved, it moves on to our change order process. This seems a bit intimidating, but it's really just a few steps. It goes from the start into the construction manager review, and it asks itself a few questions just to make sure that the proposals are complete, and then it goes into the PM review step. If the PM approves, it then moves on and asks itself questions similar to the process before. It goes to the contract administration office for review and approval, and then asks itself a question depending on the dollar value of the change order. It moves on to either director, CFO, approval, and then is finished. This is an example of the start page of the change order proposal, and you just methodically work from the top to the bottom. Anything with a red asterisk is a required field. All of the other fields are optional. A lot of the information is pre-populated, again, to incorporate data that we know exists and leaves out a lot of errors. There are sections for attachments, justification, descriptions, things like that. The blue section is our instructions for whoever is submitting it, and again, eliminates a lot of errors in the process. This is an example of the signature screen. So this is something that you can refer to during the process and once it's completed, and it gives you a snapshot of when the approvals were taken, descriptions, explanations, and is also date stamped. This is an example of our change order process start page, and again, you just work from the top to the bottom, paying attention to the blue areas for instructions. And same thing, there are sections for justification and descriptions. This is an example of the signature screen for the change order process. By moving to an electronic process, we are able to capture historical data as well as be able to detect patterns for the future. We're able to capture and see in one screen where all of the change order proposals and change orders are, who has it, how long they've had it, or what project it's related to. So we're able to clearly see where things are, as opposed to the past in a paper world, we really could not keep track of where things were, how long someone had had it, in the cases of vacations, lost in email, things like that. eBuilder also allows us to have real-time dashboards. We're able to see in a graphical format the volume of costs for change orders within a project, across companies. We can manipulate and use this in a variety of ways depending on what view we're trying to capture.
So again, in summary, we had a world that was disjointed, that had a lot of requirements in order for a change order to be executed properly, that weren't particularly efficient, particularly useful, were wasteful. And we moved from that to one where we have a consistent process for each and every construction change order that gives the project management team ability, that gives our directors and our finance department the ability to look across all of the projects, all of the change orders within a project to see whether everything is moving efficiently, to be able to be predictive for the future, and to be able to use that information to see where the hang-ups are, whether some particular project manager is being slower than other and why. Perhaps a project seems to be executed slower than others, why. And within eBuilder, we have the data to back up some of those conclusions. And so in summary, all of our goals that we initially set out were met. We significantly decreased processing time, so a change order proposal and a change order can literally be done within an hour currently. Even in the best of worlds, that could never have been done before. It would have been days. Typically, and the issue we have had previously of change order proposals being lumped into change orders that will take months has gone away. We've significantly decreased all of the wasted time and energy, and we have tamed the bobcat, and the bobcat is there sitting happy and sweet. Any questions?
All right, Tony and Molly, thank you very much. That was really good. I do have a few questions that are coming up here through the panel, so I will start here. The first one is, so for signatures. So since everything was electronic, you had showed the electronic signature page. So you guys didn't have to print anything out, do any physical signatures and rescan or put it in there. You guys were able
Correct.
to just completely get everything done electronically?
Correct. No downloading, no signing, no wet signatures, no rescanning. It's all click of a button and it moves on.
Very nice. Okay. The next question was, seeing that you had like the historical data, like with all of the reports on the change orders, did that help actually reduce the number of claims or sort of disputes that you had with the contractor at all?
I haven't got an exact figure on that, but what I can certainly say is I think it's decreased the processing time for the issues, and so I think it's gotten the contractors paid a lot more efficiently and got issues resolved a lot quicker than in the paper world.
Okay. All right. The next question is, let's see, how difficult was it to roll out the new process internally and then also externally with your contractors? So can you tell us a little bit about that?
We did before we hired eBuilder, we did some work on what we wanted a new system to look like. So that was useful. And once eBuilder was here, they were helpful in designing exactly the process that we wanted. We've been using this process now for over 2 years. And we've made some minor tweaks to it, but we haven't made any major changes to it. So we were able to get something really good out of the box that eBuilder helped us with that. And we have had, with change orders, we haven't had any problems with external contractors and change orders because I think it's fairly intuitive, and I think they realize that they capture the information and the approval sooner, which means it gets done faster, which means they can bill for it faster. So have had virtually no pushback or problems with that.
Okay.
It did offer training opportunities. I think for some, we just basically sort of went back and said, what would you have done in a paper world? Think of it in the same way. It's just a different format. You're now submitting electronically versus the paper. For a little while, people were still doing the paper version, and I think we've definitely gradually changed completely over to electronic. They're realizing they don't quite need to hang on to that paper like they used to.
All right. That sounds really great. Let's see. The next thing was, okay, so kind of tying and building off this, like Were the workflows and the forms that you showed, were they out of the box? Like, were they already pre-set up, or did you guys have to customize or configure those yourselves? How did that process work?
No, they were not out of the box, but we worked with eBuilder during implementation to customize them to what we wanted. And that worked fine. We didn't have any issues with that.
Okay, so that sounds really good. Let's see, the next question is, oh, this is a pretty good one. What steps did you have to go through to convince Manage to purchase the software? So I just heard you say that you guys were sort of thinking about this even before you went with eBuilder. But what were the steps to actually get it done and get this going in your organization?
I think there was a recognition early on that we needed a tool, a single tool, to manage our construction projects. We had a variety of systems that we used. We had forms that we sent, paper forms that we sent around. We had a few forms on SharePoint. We had lots of Excel spreadsheets on individual project managers' desks and on their PCs. We had some information into a little database that was 20 years old. And I think everyone realized that we needed a centralized location where all of the data lived, where it could be repurposed for a variety of different means, different ends, and that could then be used for reporting. And so I think everyone realized that, and we were able to identify eBuilder as a solution best suited for us.
All right. Well, Tony and Molly, that's what we have time for today. Looks like if there's any other questions that we may have missed, we will follow up along with the recording of this webinar and send that after the webinar here. And with that, again, I'm going to say thank you, Tony and Molly, from the University of Virginia for presenting on this topic today. And we'll see you in the next webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you.